Welcome to A Feast for Bros. I can't tell you how excited I am to be back at this. It's been a very lengthy year and some change. So we're excited to be back and talking about some more Game of Thrones. I'm your host, Sean Solis, and I'm joined by some lovely friends here as well. Ben Haworth.
Hello.
Sarah Becker.
Hi, everyone.
Jenna Daggett.
Hey.
Joining us from Israel, actually. At an absurd time in the morning, so we appreciate that. And Jack Newman.
She's really embracing the video format.
Yeah, I don't have that energy at 4 in the morning.
I don't either. I like if we're gonna live stream, I don't like hosting as much. There's like way too much happening. So away, Sean, go.
Jack's gonna be an arm flailing 2-man the entire time.
Well, I think the way this makes the most sense is we'll just talk a little bit about where we left off at the end of season 6. As you remember, season 6 was the first season where there wasn't actually canon to go off of. George Martin is still riding away, and my theory is that he doesn't want to end it because he can't have like any twists anymore, because eventually this thing has to take a normal narrative. So he's just like, fuck it, I'm not going to actually write these things. Like, we'll just do it live.
It can't possibly live up to the hype. He's like, yes, Jon Snow saves the day.
The fans have figured out everything already.
I kind of feel like he's planning to like just release them posthumously. Like as soon as he dies of natural causes, he'll just like release them out, and that way he's like, you can't yell at me. Like, you can't be mad.
Honestly, like if I was him and let's say that I was an older gentleman, please don't die, George R. R. Martin. I make jokes about your death, but God, please just don't. I would totally like punk everyone and like finish. Like I bet he finished writing like years ago, and he like on his deathbed, here's 3 new volumes at once.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Suck on that, nerd.
No, his way would definitely be to wait until like 50 years after he's passed. Like that's in his will, is you cannot release them for that long.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So the way we ended things was there was actually a lot going on last season. The big ones were Dany finally, after 5 seasons, actually 6 full seasons, reached Westeros at last, with a giant freaking army and dragons.
Yes.
So that's a thing, and she's allied with Dorne and with some Greyjoys and whatnot. So that'll be fun.
The
Meanwhile,
lesbian
Cersei.
pirate queen. What?
Yes. and some action in the trailer, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But that was that. So it looks like the season's kind of set itself up for a big kind of confrontation between Dany and Cersei. And then we've got some stuff going up kind of north of the Wall. Jon was crowned king in the north, and then Bran's visions confirm that Jon is the son of Lyanna Stark and likely Rhaegar Targaryen. And then the last kind of big plot line is that Sam reached Old Town, where he's going to study to be a maester. So that's kind of where things have left off. We'll kind of get to where we think predictions are for next time, but I think what I really want to do with this cast is talk about the trailers, because there's been a lot of really interesting stuff, and actually a lot of really substantive stuff that they posted in the 2 trailers. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. Let's go ahead and start with like just general reactions. What do you guys think of the first original trailer that they released?
I am excited, and I think the big thing is like it's a lot of like what is happening with Game of Thrones is like I recognize why they're speeding up the format of what's happening, because we've had so many seasons that have dropped people people like my sister and other people have like dropped Game of Thrones because it took so fucking long to get to plot issues that you recognize are happening. And I guess this thing is, at this point we're over the narrative hump of the arc of the Song of Ice and Fire. It feels like that. So now we're like getting into falling action. Well, not falling action technically, but we're heading towards the climax, and we see the shape of the climax. So at this point, like it's just like I do definitely want the series to kind of get on with it. At the same time, I don't want it to end. So I think that like it's too push pull. But knowing how boring like season 5 was, like I'm very excited to see them like just produce like essentially like made for TV movies of like fucking like Song of Ice and Fire and just like get this thing out the door and like put its best foot forward. So I as well as the quickness of this seems like sad at the same time, and everyone's like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, I understand like their need. They've looked at like what was the most successful season, what was the most unsuccessful, and producing giant battles was super successful in terms of viewership and getting people back on board. So I think I totally understand where the fuck they're coming from. At the same time, this sucks that it's only 7 episodes.
Well, that's why I think I'm with Jack on this one. I think my interest is mostly in the production side of things. I'm really, really excited that this is the biggest thing that has ever happened in TV by a mile. Like, these next 2 seasons, particularly, like, they've kind of maybe hinted at that season 8 will just be 8 90-minute episodes, basically 8 fucking movies. Like... That's insane. And the amount of money that HBO must be putting in this, because it is such a huge international hit, and we just have no idea how much goddamn money must be made from merch and DVDs, and international sales must be out of the roof. So they have money to blow, and they don't mind doing it. Like they did, like they had money to blow for Rome, but they shouldn't have. But here they like have every reason to blow insane amounts of money and have just the most crazy things. So I feel like we're going to see a lot more Battle of the Bastards size epics this season, and I feel like season 8 is just going to be 8 straight Battle of the Bastards episodes, and it's going to be ludicrous, you know. And I think that's the size of what this scope of these next seasons are going to be that they hit in the first trailer is what makes me so excited. It's like we're finally getting to the epic fantasy. It's the Return of the King level. You know, Return of the King was just battle after battle.
We're just ready.
Battle.
Yeah.
It's like it's going to be that. It's going to be Harry Potter Part 2. It's just like we're here at the battle part. Like, let's do it.
Right. And maybe,
and I hope it'll be Return of the King.
Is that your favorite one? Because some people, I prefer Fellowship of the Ring for more of the character stuff. So
it's my favorite one, but it has a happy ending, which is critical because I'm still all the way Team Danny and John, and so if it's Return of the King, I get my wish. So I have hope for it.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to quickly say a friend of mine has not watched any Game of Thrones yet, and what she told me to do is that after season 8, I have to pick one character that lives through the entire series, so that she can like have.
There's probably only going to be one left.
There probably is going to be only one anyways. I kind of hope it's John, because then by season 5 she's going to be really mad because she'll be like, "What, you liar!"
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the battles. The two favorite episodes last season were the last 2, Battle of the Bastards, because just like the epic scope of what they pulled off to do something along the lines of Saving Private Ryan, but with like, you know, medieval ancient warfare was really, really cool. And to see that in a TV setting, you know, it just hasn't been done before, and they really did just a great job with it. So, you know, kind of what we've been seeing in these trailers is what Ben was describing. It looks like just a lot of battles. You know, we're seeing like Unsullied sacking, what could be Lannister towns, and that was kind of one of the big reveals in the first trailer. You know, are they at like Casterly Rock? Are they at Lannisport? Like, what's going on? And of course, it looks like Dany's going to return back to Dragonstone, and that's where she's going to lead her campaign. And my guess would be the majority of the season is going to be kind of a back and forth between Dany and Cersei.
Which is just going to be so freaking good. Like, just from, like, the perspective of, like, those two characters and how those characters have grown and, like, the ways that they could, like, just, like, the play and, like, kind of, like, they've built up almost, like, kind of proportionally, like, theories of rule. Like, it is, like, Machiavelli versus, like, fucking, like, kind of, like, more of a esoteric ruler. But, I mean, both are, like hard power in terms of their rulership.
Machiavelli versus Napoleon, you know what I mean?
Like, it's but it's like fascinating. It's still fascinating in terms of like what it's going to create between these two characters, these two like very powerful women with like their, you know, the kind of their personal life.
That's what struck me at the end of season 6 was like when it was Dany and the Queen of Thrones and the Sand Snakes and Yara coming to attack Cersei. I was like, oh my god, the Clash of Kings was about 5 kings. They're all dead now. And it's a bunch of queens basically going to attack each other, and they did it so elegantly and not like in your face. Like, and like the fact that I was just like, wow, the way they weave that is really cool.
Yeah, because in both of those situations, you know, it's their principal advisor, I guess, you know, or men, right? So they're kind of like, you know, the women are definitely like in the driver's seat here, and I think it's interesting that in both situations, like, Dany's kind of leaning on Tyrion and Cersei's leaning on Jaime. And then the question is like, how do those kind of relationships develop, and how does that kind of change the course of the conflict as things go forward? And I know a lot of folks here kind of have thoughts on where the whole Jaime Cersei thing is going, but I think that's going to be kind of a fascinating dynamic to watch as we get into the season.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The other kind of thing I wanted to chat about in the first trailer, kind of before we move on to the second one, and this is something that everyone was kind of talking about, but there's a scene of like I think it's Yara and Laria Sand are like making out, and the question is like, what the hell? Like, what's are they going anywhere with that relationship? Like, what do folks think is going to go? What's going to happen with that?
At least one of them will die. A, because it's Game of Thrones, and B, because lesbians, but
you have zero faith.
It's gonna be awesome when it happens.
So I kind of think nothing will happen. Like, I don't think it's a relationship. I feel like they're going to it's a teaser trailer, so I feel like they're building up the hype, and then it's just going to be like one scene or something, and everyone's gonna be like, oh.
Yeah.
Based
on how both of those characters, well, just based on their character, Laria Sand is still, she's angry, but probably still somewhere deep inside mourning the loss of of Oberyn. And Yara's just this pirate queen who seems to be like kind of one of the lads. And like in that scene back in season 6, she's like, I'm going to go fuck the tits off that one. Like, surely they're just in it for sex. Which is fine. It's great.
It is great. I think it is fine is the big thing, and I think that like the combination of like everything that's happening, I do think it makes. I have to admit, like when you're like, I love when I can just tell that like Sarah has like lost the will to live for lesbians in shows, and I'm just like not in terms of like you're just like your baseline stat is like they're gonna die if they make out with each other, and I'm just like it makes me so sad.
And then if they don't die, I'm like, hooray!
No, I agree with you.
To be fair, though, they are like good candidates for dying in this season.
They are super good candidates. It is,
and also, I mean, it's
the
Game of
fucking Greyjoy.
Everyone is a good candidate for death.
Yeah, I mean, and
we whittled out most of our A-list stars. Like we only have like they're not getting Emilia Clarke paychecks. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
right.
It's gonna
I still think part of me was like. They were like looking at whether to keep Natalie Dormer's character going, and they're like, she costs a little too much.
Was that? I highly doubt. I highly doubt that they like made. I hope they don't ever make any decision based like that. But like, I do agree with Ben. Like sometimes I'm looking at like production costs for this show, and I'm like, I bet that's there. There was like they thought about it like that. Like
look at all these people like super cheap when they weren't like famous. Now they're crazy famous. So like, that's how these shows work.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how freaking Robert Downey Jr. worked. He got like $200,000 for the first Iron Man. Now he's getting $100 million for Avengers.
Yeah, just a funny story. Like a good friend of mine in law school actually ran into Maisie Williams at the airport before she was famous, and just like didn't she didn't even know who it was. Like they're just having a friendly conversation with Maisie Williams.
Aww.
Like a couple minutes later, she like goes and sits down, and then like everyone like starts coming up to her, and she's like, oh, like who's this person I've been talking to, and like sent me and like a couple other friends a picture, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Arya. You like we're talking to Arya, and you didn't know it. But yeah, it is kind of crazy like how big they've gotten when they were just kind of. No one knew who they were to begin with. Well, let's go to the more exciting trailer, which is the second one that actually just got released, I think, maybe like a week or two ago. This is the one where they're playing like Light of the Seven throughout the trailer, and it's kind of an ominous trailer.
Way to get mileage out of that song. I'm just saying, and way to play off
song.
Like the amazing sequence from the previous season as well. Like all around great, but like just freaking like a great way to play off all of my expectations in terms of what's happening in terms of that. Like I love the use of music in Game of Thrones, and I think like the quality of the overall casting is going up as time has gone on, and I think even more so now. I'm just like, yep, you guys can just use as much of this stuff as you want. Like I'm cool with it. Yes. Y'all have earned it. Like you're good.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And if you don't mind, let's take like a little music detour. And I know Sarah's going to be happy about this. But one of the things I did between seasons is I Game of Thrones Live was playing like all over the place, and all it was like Raymond Djawadi, who's the composer of Game of Thrones, and he would go to cities and basically like recruit the local orchestra in the city, and then play all of the Game of Thrones soundtrack with like really cool shit going on as you were watching it. So there'd be kind of footage from the show, and they'd have like weirwood trees, and there'd be leaves coming into the audience, and it was just it was such a blast. But what struck me is just like the different types of instruments that he integrates into the soundtrack. He'll apparently what he does is he goes to different cities and will take like kind of local music, and that's kind of how he decides like what kind of instruments to use in different soundtracks, in different scores. So it's kind of fun to watch, and I really do think like the music has kind of evolved as we've gotten further into the series, and I'm kind of excited to see what kind of happens in season 7. But
it really has. The Light of the Seven music was just, I think you said this before, Sean, on our group chat, that it's Raymond Djawadi's masterpiece, and it's so good. It's so Philip Glassian and excellent, and like instruments come out of nowhere that you don't expect. Like I rewatched that episode just this afternoon, actually, and there's a bit where like an organ comes in. And I'm like, when have they had organs before in Game of Thrones music? I don't care. It sounds great. I'm gonna learn to play that.
Yeah, and more I'll be like working and I'll put on Game of Thrones soundtrack in the background, and it's just like, it's becoming like a thing you can do, which is really cool to see in like a TV show, because you don't normally expect to have really great composition in the setting of a TV show. So that's kind of a cool development. But moving past the music and kind of talking about the rest of this trailer, there was just a lot of stuff going on too. I think this one kind of took place more in the north, so we're kind of getting some foreshadowing about what's going on. But kind of the big drop was that it looks like Bran is finally getting back to Castle Black, and there's kind of been a whole lot of conversation on the interwebs about, as you remember, he got branded by the Night King, right? Which was what allowed the White Walkers to get into their little kind of riot, and Hodor kind of bit the big one, unfortunately. So the question is, like, by Bran getting into Castle Black, does that now mean that like the spells protecting it are gone, and the White Walkers can then get across the wall?
Either that, or the wall's going to come down. And I kind of think that might be like the end of this season. Because I was kind of thinking about it, and as excited that I am that there are still 2 full seasons left, 7 and 8, and 8 is going to be, feature-length episodes. This is wonderful. But I'm starting to kind of worry that, well, not worry, but like how much of the story is left to tell? Like all of the battles, or all of the armies are poised for battle. Like they're there. So is this season basically going to be a lot of Dany, Cersei, and then just a little bit of Jon, and then season 8 will be all White Walkers and so forth and whatever, or is there going to be a little bit of both?
That's my assumption, personally.
I think this one will be a lot of the like minor fighting and minor battles, but a lot of like alliance building, and then season 8's all going to be the Great War, the White Walkers and dragons, and which dragons are left, because I see a lot that one of the dragons is going to die, and I don't like that.
Oh, no.
I guess for me, like, that would be very, very boring to me personally, and here's one of the reasons why is because, like, I guess, like, I watch Game of Thrones for the political intrigue, and that's, like, the last 6 seasons that we've watched, and, like, if they just have, like, a straightforward us against the White Walkers season, I mean, there has to be some sort of flip turn in terms of what the White Walkers are, and who's evil, and who's good, and what's happening, do you know what I mean? So, like, I still expect some form of other flip turn coming at some point, and I want to know what that is, because, like, as much as we say, like, oh, we figured out what the plot's gonna happen, like, we really don't know, like, enough about, well, I think even more so than that, we don't know enough about the White Walkers to even give a good thing of what their ultimate goal is. And that's the other thing is, other than the Night King, we don't have characterization. And I think that's the other thing is, like, hopefully there will be a lot of the season.
We've got Benjen Stark.
Yeah, we do. And I guess like my hope is that, like, there'll be more Bran moments that'll kind of, if they are going to be the bad guy and there will be an ultimate battle, which I'm sure there will be, like, they can't not do it at this point a little bit. Like, they just can't not.
Yeah, I assume the ending will either be the wall coming down or Jon having to become Azor Ahai of some form or another. Like, I figured those are the 2 big moments they have left, just like huge, epic cliffhangers. And they kind of hinted at that with, I forget the character's name who has the patch over his eye. Eric Tandar, and he had the fire sword.
With the freaking flaming
like
sword.
I think the Lord of Light like religion's going to come up a lot more in the season leading up to, and that's like an obvious sort of reference to Azra Ahai. So I think like we're leading up to that moment happening, and presumably John killing someone very important. My guess would be Danny, but that's my own personal guess.
Yeah, you kind of raised 2 points there, because I guess we'll talk about the relationship between John and Danny first, because I think it's super interesting, and I think we'll define a lot of this season.
Yeah, and I heard a kind of spoiler that some set people saw, so I don't know if we want to get into that or not.
Oh no, we won't do that. But
I do want to. Sorry, I mean, I'll ask Ben later. You're right in terms of some people are gonna. It is pretty, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the trailer, in all honesty, that kind of shows where they're going with that. I mean, first off, like Bran is coming back.
This wasn't in the trailer, so that's why I don't want to really bring it up, because it's like set photo stuff that they shouldn't have taken pictures of. So it's like, you know,
right?
Yeah.
I think we ought to work with the material that we get. That seems like it's only fair.
No, I don't have the same opinion. That's okay. I will either.
I'll PM Jack later, is what we're saying.
Yeah, we'll do this. We'll throw down.
PM me too, Ben.
Okay.
I want to know now.
But you know, with Bran coming back to Castle Black, like, you know, obviously he's the only person who knows Jon's background and heritage. So if he reveals that to Jon, that is a huge game changer, I think, in terms of where he aligns himself with, right? Because like right now, you know, we even saw a shot in the trailer of Dany tearing down Stannis Baratheon's banners at Dragonstone. Remember that, you know, the reason that she was out not in Westeros for the whole time was because of this Robert's Rebellion. And she still feels a whole lot of resentment towards both the Baratheons and the Starks for Ned joining with Robert in that. Right. So normally they would be at odds and huge enemies. So the question is, like, does Jon's knowledge of his background kind of change that calculus?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jon doesn't know, right? Only Bran knows?
No.
Right.
Well, also Jojen Reed's father, somebody Reed.
Yeah. Howland.
Right.
Yeah, Howland Reed.
Howland Reed.
Who's still...
Have we met him in the show yet?
Nope.
Nope.
In a flashback.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But not
he's one of the guys
yet.
with Ned, yeah.
Yeah. I think
But I think...
Go ahead.
I think once Bran comes back and is able to, like, disseminate the message that who Jon Stark actually is, I think that's going to change a lot about how Dany views him too, because she does believe that the Targaryens are the true rulers, and there's another Targaryen all of a sudden, and so I think that's going to be a huge, like, pivotal moment. I suspect, like, last episode, I mean, because that would be this, like, what's going to happen in season 8 then, now that, you know, even more people are dead. There's 5 characters remaining.
Right.
Well, and the other thing too is that would get interesting too, because like in the way Westeros, like the heritage line runs, like Jon would have a better claim than Dany would in that situation. So does that kind of screw things as well? So there's a lot of interesting ways that could go.
That might also affect all of the houses in the north who, you know, declared Jon king in the north. Once they realize that he's half Targaryen, they might have a few things to say about that.
Right. Yeah, like the Targaryens are the historical enemy, right, for hundreds of years.
And also Ned Stark is not his father, so does that make him true heir of Winterfell, as they said? Yeah.
Good point.
Well, so, I mean, granted, you know,
I'm scared that him and Sansa will end up together rather than him and Dany, because I think that would truly unify the country, though, because you have, like, the true heir of Winterfell and then the Targaryen lineage.
I know, but they were raised as brother and
still
sister.
Related.
Still related.
Targaryens
they're cousins
for years.
Right, Targaryens do like their incest.
Yeah, unfortunately, at this point,
Lannisters?
everyone is vaguely related to everyone else in this show. If you guys haven't noticed, so anyone that, like, at this point, it's like risky boating, like, because you don't know, like, a little bit.
And I mean, any level of incest beneath, like, Cersei Jaime is, you know, probably viewed as okay in Westeros.
It's one of those things. It's like you wonder if, like, the showrunners daughters even realize that it is incest because they've gone to up here, and so now they're coming back down here, and they're like, I mean, that's like regular everyday stuff.
Yeah, it's just cousins. That's legal in some states, right?
It's legal in a state. That's crazy. Yeah, it's good. Who cares? Come on.
Game of Thrones, what have you done to society?
Yeah.
You just ruined everybody.
This is why everyone ships.
Okay,
Siblings.
so just like a minor detractions, Sean, I completely blame you. But the other day I heard this argument about how Game of Thrones is desensitizing people to ISIS. So I just want to throw that out there because my life centers on.
No.
Oh no.
You need to explain this one.
No.
Jenna.
So-
Can we not? Like, for me, like, I love you, Jenna. I love you to death. But just like for my own personal like health, like, can we not?
Hey, politics is my life.
I know,
I'm stepping
I get it,
backwards. Sorry, Sean.
Go
You're
ahead.
in complete control.
Oh, God. I'm gonna go make a drink. Y'all talk about this.
Going
yes, what's
back.
the theory?
So
All right, fuck it.
I want to hear it. I'm sorry. I need to hear it.
it's compelling. I mean, I don't think I agree completely, but it is like a thought. The idea is that with like the rise of Game of Thrones, youth especially are becoming very like accustomed to seeing like beheadings and violence, rape, gore, all of that. And so the argument is that when we see propaganda videos, it's not as like shocking. Whereas like, I don't know if you guys remember, but when we were kids, all the like post 9/11 Al-Qaeda videos, that was pretty like, at least for me, it was pretty traumatic, like seeing on film what was happening. And so like
I don't blame Game of Thrones. I just blame the internet. You know, like it's just like right now I can go on Reddit and look at like just gore all day long if I want to. You know what I mean?
Like, does the average, at least I would say, does the average person go on Reddit to look at gore compared to like the average person watching Game of Thrones?
That I don't know. But I mean, I think there's just a problem in general that we've always valued the terrorist issue. People have always like pointed out how you can read Star Wars as a terrorist thing because it's about a young boy whose family is killed and they become radicalized to attack the oppressive regime. You know what I mean? Like, I think we always sort of valued the idea of like fighting the man. You know what I mean? And so like you can always narrow that into.
She's got a point in the sense that like I think we've been pushing the envelope further and further, really since like the 2000s, right? Like, you know, with Rome and then with like Spartacus, which I think is still like to me the most like just egregious fucking thing. Like you just watch that and it's just like, oh my god.
It's egregious. It's a good word.
So I you know, when you get something like that, it's like, what have we changed like the playing field in terms of like what, you know, what's shocking on television nowadays?
I think it's more scarily normalized being able to teleport vast distances without having to have. It's normalized Littlefinger's little escape routes that he has all across the country.
And again, today when I was watching, is it Winds of Winter that the last episode is called?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, you know, they show, you know, Dany making the deal with Yara in Marine or whatever, and then all of a sudden she's like picked up all of these Dornish ships and is just like already there with Varys. Like,
yeah, they were definitely ready to like get going. They're like, we're not messing around anymore.
Yeah, they're never gonna have like season 2. Like I don't remember if Dany in season 2 was like clearly they just need to hold on to the Emilia Clarke till season 3 when she actually does stuff, because the whole time she's just like, boats. I want boats. That'll never happen again. Like characters have to do stuff in the show now.
There's two other kind of points that I wanted to raise in the trailer. The first one is the Jon sequence, right? So he looks like he goes out north of the wall with Beric Dondarrion, who's got his flame sword, and there's the scene at the end where they're like surrounded by White Walkers. So the question is like, Jon's not going to die, right? There's like no way that can possibly happen.
I think he might turn into a White Walker, but sort of like a la Benjen Stark.
You deserve that.
Yes, you do.
I'm sorry.
Don't die on us.
It made it strong. Sorry. I even walked away from it, so that's my bad. Also, guys, Italian Manhattans, they're delicious. I have a good Campari recipe that I like. I do Cardamaro, sweet vermouth.
We're trying to make a serious point on this podcast,
okay, go ahead.
Jack.
Sorry, my bad. I like non-hosting. I am everyone's worst.
We can tell.
And this is what happens. It's like everyone. The reason that I host at this point is so that no one has to like have a podcast with me on it while they're hosting. Cheers.
Thanks, bro. Anyway, so I'm curious to see where that goes. I don't think it's possible that John dies, but like the way they set up the trailer at the end, like there has to be something big that happens for him to get out of that situation. Like if you're fucking surrounded by White Walkers, like
I really think he's gonna get turned into a White Walker. I'm convinced this is gonna happen, even if he's still like self-aware or on the side of humans like Benjen Stark.
Oh,
it's still.
Are you saying John specifically?
Yeah.
I would
John's gonna be Blade. Oh,
I would take it a step back, and here's what I'll say. I think that there will be a Stark that becomes a White Walker, but that's a big pool to pick from.
Arya.
Sansa.
No.
Or Bran himself. Like, does Bran become something more ethereal and related to the Children of the Forest? Like, I think there's a lot of like options and opportunities here to fulfill that. I agree with you that is totally like a plot point that's come up, Sarah, and it will be fulfilled at some point, because like the Starks and the King of the Night thing from that tale, that's a plot point that's laid. It has to have some form of payoff. It's laid in the series too, so it's laid in both places, both in the books and in the series. So I do agree with but that said, they totally lay the groundwork, or at least hint. I swear to God, they wink at Lady Stoneheart. Just saying.
Yes. There's that one awkwardly long scene in the Ian McShane episode. It's like, why is... Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
So, another couple interesting points is in the trailer, you can see like Arya going north. It looks like she's going back to Winterfell, which, I think one of our questions at the end of the last season is, well, she just fucking murdered Walder Frey.
Yeah.
So the question is, like, where was she going to go? That was such a gross scene, but it was great. And I think her going north actually makes sense because, she hasn't seen her family, I guess, right, for the whole, 4 or 5 seasons now. So it makes sense that she actually wants to get reunited with her family. But
whatever's left of it.
Right.
Okay, can I offer I disagree, because once she finally returned, her first thing was to exact revenge. I don't think that for Arya, family is her like driving motivation. I think for her list is like literally what she lives for. And if she sees her family, or at least John, because I don't think she like gives a fuck about the rest of them. Yeah, but if she sees John, she'll be happy. But I think she's all about murdering people, and so I think that, unlike what's been said, I think that her and Cersei might be more of an interesting dynamic than her and Dany, because I don't think Dany's necessarily like must kill Lannisters. Dany's just like must control kingdom, whereas Arya's like, Cersei, I'm coming for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Jaime's got to kill Cersei.
This is true.
No, I agree. But I think Arya is going to like move in, kind of thing.
Yeah, that is actually my fear.
Cersei,
that is like
stabbing her.
Super much my fear about like Arya dying is because like at this point she's got an axe to grind with Cersei, and yet we like thematically know that she will not succeed.
Right.
Like, and that's a cool moment for Game of Thrones for me, because it's like he works really thematically. Like you can see Ned's death hinted at 10 ways from Sunday in both the first season as well as that. Like, from the first moment cutting a dude's head off, and the opening shot and the ending shot of him happening. Like, George R.R. Martin and the showrunners work very thematically, and so knowing as much buildup as we have about the prophecy about Cersei, I know that Arya is going to try to kill Cersei and fail. So, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean as a whole? And how does that play out?
The reason I say it looks like she's going north is because there's the shot in the trailer where she's like breathing, but she can see her breath, so it shows that it's like fucking cold. So
yeah,
the idea is that she's like going north.
Winter's coming.
Winter's here.
True. But it's not that cold down south yet.
But in Cersei, you can see her breath in one of the trailers.
Maybe.
You're correct. She's actually very right, Sean. It could just be a total nod to the existing series as a whole right now, in terms of like winter is physically coming to like it is the season of winter, however that works in Game of Thrones land.
In Game of Thrones land.
Sci-fi universe.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The last.
Do you think Arya is ever going to meet up with her wolf again?
Yes.
I'm still for the theory that Arya is going to command an army of wolves.
Yes.
to attack.
Be amazing.
I think Nymeria will be back this season. That's my prediction. for
Yeah,
the
I hope
wolf.
so.
I don't think she's gonna be. I think it's gonna be if she comes back, it's gonna be some form of metaphor in terms of like her showing up and being like, this is like the way Arya is now. She's wild. Get it? Like that's gonna be the extent that Nymeria will come back to. And I think that's the other thing too, is that the women of the Stark family clearly have like, all of them have issues, but clearly like the Stark women have become like murderers, and it's like totally cool, which is kind of you know, but like suggested murderers in terms of like you know, literally like Arya takes sexual pleasure in like killing Walder Frey, like that's a fact. Like,
that happened. Yeah. Again, saw that today.
That was like a cigarette face. Like that was like a post-coital cigarette face as he like strangles out his last. And probably the most haunting kill. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know I'm terrible.
No, you're not wrong though.
Like I'm not, and it's just like it is like I do think that they're laying the groundwork for her going in more of a violent direction and kind of being at odds with the rest of her family, which plays into the idea that as a Stark become evil and her ties to the stranger as well as the other ties to the existing gods in the universe, like you know the old drowned god, and how does that play in?
Yeah. I'm kind of going off
about Euron.
Right, I know, I do too. Like, there's like that's the thing. This is the thing. There's so much fucking.
Everybody's
shit
like,
going
I'm
on
gonna kill
right now.
Yara. I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Well, okay, so
Fuck the Dragon Queen. No, you're not.
if we're talking about Euron, because there's another interesting point that was raised in the trailers. Like, there's clearly you can see his fleet kind of moving around, and my guess would be that he has to ally with Cersei at some point because she doesn't have a navy. Whereas Dany actually has like this giant navy, so that's the only way that makes like logical sense.
That makes sense. And then it'd have like some more people to fight for the boats.
Yeah, and there's also shots of like burning ships with like Theon on them, so it's like I think there's going to be like a Greyjoy like kind of clash at some point.
Yeah.
And my guess would be that Theon does not fare well.
And then especially
he
now
has to
that
be challenged
Cersei,
to figure it himself.
Well,
now that Cersei is the queen, Euron might be like, well, I can't fuck the Dragon Queen, so I'll fuck the Queen of Westeros instead. Hey, let's do this.
I like that man's planning. We can always figure out from like
He's
where
dick
Euron's
first.
at. Like,
Yes.
like how am I gonna fuck my way to the top? It's not just like conquer. He's like, I'm gonna fuck my way there. Like
his foreign policy is walk soft with a hard dick. Like that is his foreign policy.
yes. Perfect.
Quote of the episode.
Well played. So going back to there's one other point I wanted to raise, and this was like the quote at the end that there's gotten a lot of play on the internet as well, where Sansa says kind of creepily like the lone wolf dies but the pack survives, which kind of alludes to the fact that she doesn't go along with Littlefinger's plans. And I think we pretty much agreed last season that Sansa has to kill Littlefinger at some point, given that she handed her over to the Boltons. So does anyone kind of have any thoughts on like kind of where that relationship goes and how that develops?
I want some like, especially like, I think that the show gets off a little bit by like, because they've had characters running independent storylines for so long. The show kind of like has a mini orgasm just from like, you can tell from like the cinematographer, like when Dany and Peter Dinklage ended up in the same scene, like you can tell from the cinematography that they were like, holy crap, this is happening. And I think that it's very hard for me to disbelieve that Peter, like, that Peter Baelish won't have a similar scene with Dany, and Dany like puts him in his place and everyone goes, smack talk, and like that's like the show enjoys those moments. And so like especially,
and Varys is just gonna be standing back there like,
yeah. And that's the thing, is like I highly expect Peter Baelish to go do teleporting travel and go have all those moments with Cersei, Daenerys, and Jon retrospectively, and I think that's just like, I want that sort of to happen, and then eventually somebody's just like slip him, and then he's out. And I do think like it'll be an end season deal, because I think the show enjoys too now. Like maybe this is me predicting kind of like the show running to this. I think the show enjoys having high body counts per episode and like doing that, oh my god, we're stacking the death count. So like even if there's not like a red wedding per se, I bet they'll thematically line it up so like all of a sudden there's all these people dying at once.
I agree with that, and if she does kill Littlefinger, I want her to basically become Littlefinger. You know what I mean? Like we said, one of the great things that is great about Game of Thrones is that everyone's death generally matches with sort of thematically something they've done in the past. You know what I mean? Or
right.
Or with their character, or the reason they've had that downfall. Like Walder Frey's perfect. Like he killed everyone at dinner, so he gets fed his sons. You know, like that's just a great little thematic turnaround. And so I would hope that she does some sort of big fuck you, kills him, and maybe even kills the kid in the veil and just takes over the veil as well, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like totally orchestrates a giant Red Wedding level coup that is almost too dark. You know what I mean? That is almost like, yeah, Peter Baelish probably caught it coming, but whoa, girl, that was intense.
Like,
you know? Like getting to the point that she could become a new Littlefinger. Like he was clearly grooming her.
Peter through the moon door.
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that.
And I think
that's kind of what we've been seeing too in the last couple seasons, is that like these character arcs for characters who started off just like super innocent, both Arya and Sansa particularly, have just taken a turn for such a dark place.
I love it.
But yeah, Sansa left a fucking Bolton to get eaten by his dogs, which again is like another great like little This is a smart way to kill a character that's like thematically interesting.
They're destroying the male characters and the female characters in different ways, whereas it's like, you know, Sansa and Arya generally have a rougher life. Well, I guess Jon got murdered, so like, what's I mean, Ramsay's,
let's not rank rough life.
I was going to say, like, Ramsay is the worst. No, like, let's not. I mean, clearly he is, but like, let's not do that. Like, because no.
It's like women in the show get destroyed emotionally, men get destroyed physically. Like,
that's
I mean, it's
fair.
Pretty boring gender things, but it's still like that's what it is. Is like these women are just like going through hell, and the men are just like, I'm gonna murder you or have you eaten by your dogs.
Crippled and murdered. That's like what it is. Crippled, murdered, beheaded. So there you go.
All your fingers cut off.
On that happy note, let's turn, which is, I guess, very Games of Thronesy. I like that. Let's turn to predictions for what we think is going to happen this season. What do we think? You know, if you could kind of give one prediction for what you think is going to happen, what would it be? And I guess we'll start with you, Jack.
I guess like my take here is that like from a pure strategic viewpoint, Dany doesn't need to fucking do anything else. Like Dany should win. Like. Dany has, and I mean, I bet it'll be alliance issues between, you know, clearly like the Dornish and Highgarden have been at war for quite a while. That's an old thing. So that now they're gonna make an alliance with Dany and her army of Dothraki, and pretty much like Cersei's got the Lannisters, and you know, because the Freys are pretty much dead and in ruins. The North is like gone for her. So like, I don't understand. I guess like this is the only way this works is like. Cersei suddenly turns super competent at military combat and maybe conspires to like murder everyone. I guess that maybe like that's the only way is like, you know, is to watch like Dany, who is capable and is more capable now, still get run amok with just like the fucking machinations of Cersei and like what she does. And I think that's what we're gonna see is that like, you know, clearly at the end of the last season, power levels were not properly aligned, and so we need to see some like, because there's no tension there, because I have no doubt that Cersei can just like, I mean, Daenerys can march north and fucking kill it and kill everyone. And that's going to start happening. But I think that they need to do something with Cersei to even the odds, or suggest, or they just go down the pathway of she's just crazy, which would be very disappointing to me because she is very different than the book Cersei a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, the book Cersei is crazy. The show Cersei is Lena Headey, who is super capable, and that's
right.
That's and I prefer the show. Like, it's one of those legitimate versions where I've always preferred the show Cersei because they make her into kind of a powerful female character. And I'm much more interested in that sort of like powerful female byplay between Daenerys and Cersei than I am in terms of seeing like, you know, Cersei fall apart because she can't win and then Daenerys just slowly march north. That's boring as fuck. Like, how is Cersei going to try to like murder her in her sleep? That's what I want to see. And not just that, that's what I see. I think the show understands that. I think the show understands that we have these super powerful archetype women in these positions, and like people enjoy the, like from like this perspective. Sorry, this is means something else, but it meant something else in this context. Though they would sell 1 million, they would just win if it happened on the show like that.
Oh, goddamn.
If Emilia Clarke and Lena Headey like make out, like it would literally like like the internet would implode.
It would break the internet.
Literally, it would break us, like, as fans of this show. Like, we would not, like, look at Ben, like, he's like, yeah, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Like literally everyone would die. Like, it would happen, and like, just like,
I would just spontaneously combust.
And like, Jon Snow's in the background knowing nothing. Like, fuck your expectations. I don't know.
So you're not wrong, but I do think you make an interesting point. I don't think they're going to go the crazy angle because with Lena Headey playing Cersei, like it just doesn't make sense. Like they can't do it.
It's not fun.
I think the way they're going to go with it is two things. Like you see in the trailer, like Jaime and Bronn like leading the Lannister troops, and I think that's where like the military tactics is going to play in because like Cersei's character historically just hasn't been a very good like military tactician. So I think Jaime's going to take on that role. And then the whole Euron piece where he comes in and allies with them. And I think, fucking dragons are the problem, right? Like, if you have dragons like that kind of, like, you just win. Like, so I don't know how they're gonna deal with that issue, but, just talking about, like, the troops that they have, like, Cersei's forces plus Euron against Daenerys.
Euron theoretically has in the show.
That's what I was about to say.
Go ahead, Ben. Let me know.
That's the one thing that could be the case is that in the books he does have a thing that can fuck with dragons. So like that could definitely be how Euron comes with being more powerful than he is currently. Because like right now we're like, what the fuck is he gonna do? And that might be what he sways the tide of battle with.
But we see the item. The item has been seen in this show with Sam.
Is it?
Yeah, it was the horn. It was up north. That was the horn. There's separate. There's separate horns.
It's a different thing.
There's different horns. There's different magical horns. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I think that horn.
Sorry.
That one's gonna come into my prediction.
Yeah. No, they see the horn that's supposed to be blown that can drop the wall.
Exactly.
Right. And then there's some sort of magical horn that can let you control dragons. So different magical horns.
Yes.
So going off the magic angle, does anyone have any predictions? Because we haven't talked really about Sam's storyline. Does anyone have predictions for where that's going?
I think he's going to heal Ser Jorah. Ser Jorah has to be reunited with Dany by next season, I think. And I think
it's going to drop it. I think they're going to drop a thread line. I'm sorry, Jenna. Go ahead. My bad.
You think he's going to get free? He's just going to walk forever?
Yeah.
Oh, no, he's going to row forever. That's how we last saw him. That's like some of my favorite Game of Thrones memes.
I hope that's post-credit in Game of Thrones as Gendry just comes into King's Landing and it's destroyed. He's just like, looks back out.
What's up, guys?
Oh, yeah, Gendry. Whatever happened to him?
The USS, like, lost thread lines. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and most of those came back. I was shocked. Most of those came back. But
not Gendry.
Not Gendry.
Forever.
The pilot's got to stay with his ship.
Or like Arya.
There have been
somebody and it's Gendry.
I mean, Gendry's story was over. I think that's the thing. It's like I think he's pretty much done. That's why I don't think he's ever going to come back. They just didn't do a good job of showing that he's over.
Yeah,
well,
I think it makes a lot more sense.
Like how much the internet wants Gendry to come back because I think there was a scene in one of the trailers where like there was some guy like wielding a fucking warhammer and that was Robert's weapon, and it's like, oh, it's Gendry, like he's got the warhammer. Like that is wishful thinking.
Have you seen the
actor? I would love if he does
he's
the Han Solo and shows up out of nowhere.
Like the actor that plays Gendry is built like a brick shithouse. Like it would be cool actually. Like
Game of Thrones, they always come back. He's gonna be back. You guys are just hating on poor guy, and he's gonna be strong as fuck because he's been rowing for 4 seasons.
Exactly. He's got huge arms.
Big forearms.
Like Popeye.
Oh. All right. So another prediction that I wanted to ask y'all about is Jon, because I feel like we have to talk about like where the fuck he's gonna go. Like he's king in the north now. We do see some shots of like how I guess Davos kind of sending an embassy to Dany, which is interesting. So where do you think he goes this season now that he's king in the north?
I think he's just going to prepare for the wall to fall. I mean, with Bran and the brand, haha. I think that the wall's falling, and Jon's focus has never been controlling; it's been protecting. And so I think he's just going to start getting everyone ready as much as he can, as much as people believe him.
I think a lot of it will be. I think it's going to flip from King's Landing, where King's Landing is going to be the war zone, and Winterfell is going to be sort of like the political intrigue zone. And I think we're gonna keep Littlefinger up there with Sansa to keep the Littlefinger Sansa Jon thing going. Clearly, like Dany and Jon will meet this season, like undoubtedly at some point. It's as some form of emissary.
I think that's where it's gonna come in, is that he's gonna know Dany will probably take Dragonstone. Dragonstone's where you get Dragon Glass. He's gonna need a fuck ton of that. Obviously, dragons are probably going to be good to murder a bunch of zombies. I feel like he's going to look at her and be like, you're probably the only fucking person right now, because Stannis died and he was going to help me. He's all fucking dead now. So, like, you're the only person who would believe me and possibly help me murder all these goddamn zombies. Because it doesn't matter if you're queen of all these zombies come and murder everyone. What are you queen of, you know?
So I think that's pretty much
Isn't Melisandre on her way to Old Town?
I think she's going to meet up with Dany.
Well, that's the other thing we have to do with, in terms of my whole Lord of Light thing, is that there's this second. Now we have a second Red Witch who believes Dany is the Messiah. So I think we're gonna get a lot of like Messiah v Messiah, where like he's gonna show up with Dany, and then she's gonna be like, "You're not the Messiah. She's the Messiah," and then it'll be like a lot of Messiah.
Let me be honest.
Fighting.
This is just my big fear for Game of Thrones from a critical perspective, and we love it, and we fucking have a podcast about fucking just talking about Game of Thrones. So clearly, I love it.
Yes.
My fear is that there's a lot of bullshit that I don't care about that they could like spend a lot of time on. And I'm sorry, the Red Witch shit I just don't care about until and I'll give you credit. There's information that exists in the book that we need to make it interesting, and that hasn't been given in the show. And I think that's like, we need more information. We need to have more stakes in the Azor Ahai, because Stannis failing was the kind of the completion of the Azor Ahai arc until Jon becomes whatever it is, and it just happens to be there. Like, we need more information specifically about Rhaegar Targaryen. And that's the big thing, is like, we've been wanting flashbacks for seasons on season. How much is this flashback? Like, you could do a fucking season of flashbacks and I would love it, you know? And that's just like, I would love it.
You gotta save that for the spin-off show. You gotta save it for the spin-off show.
There's not actually gonna be a spin-off show. Is that actually?
Oh yeah, there's gonna be so many spin-off shows.
So many spin-off
shows. Fool if you don't think there's gonna be a million spin-off shows.
Fuck me. It's like HBO. Fuck. HBO just starts producing Game of Thrones spin-off movies for like decades.
I mean, George R.R. Martin did write a spin-off book about Dunkin' Eggs, so it's
which I'm gonna give you guys credit here, is really, really good.
Yeah. I have started reading it. I haven't had time to finish it yet, but
really
yes,
good.
I can confirm so far it's very good.
Really, really good. And it's also
except I keep picturing Egg as Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I kind of can't help that.
And here's the thing too with that story, like, it's so. Have you guys read Gawain and the Green Knight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's kind of like a literature story, but it really shows to you like George R.R. Martin's like academic chops, as opposed to just like his straight like fantasy stuff. Like, it's very much like Gawain and the Green Knight and his own myth making within his universe, and it just like it's one of those books that, like, if I hadn't read Game of Thrones I wouldn't suggest it to you, but like as a Game of Thrones fan, it's like a total squee fest in terms of like tying into the universe. You're like, oh, it's just like the whole time you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that's happening.
Well, getting back to the universe, I think just one point I'll raise about your last discussion. I think it's pretty much confirmed that Dany does get back the Dragonstone, because like there's so much footage of her in the trailer. Like, she like tears down the Baratheon banners. So like that's
and the
her
throne.
The first episode is called Dragonstone. She's fucking going there.
She's
like,
there. Yeah, she's back.
They show the throne room. Like, it's not a question.
Yeah.
But in terms of more predictions, like who do we think is gonna die? Because I think this is always funny. Like who's fucking dying first this season? Major character.
We're gonna lose a Stark.
First and stuff.
A Stark?
We're gonna.
Stark?
Well, the only reason I think there's so many Starks, like.
There's not so many Starks
there
anymore.
There are 4
Starks. No, but like, if we have 4 plot lines and there's so few episodes, like, why not kill a Stark?
I don't feel like we're gonna lose Stark. I think we're finally gonna get all the Starks back together.
Yeah, we're gonna get.
We're finally getting the Starks back together, because like, what I like about the Starks is that they're all about the new generation.
I love you so much. It like kills. Like I don't get offended by your existence. I never doubt like your certitude of it. I'm just depressed by it. Like I haven't expressed that as well in the past. Like I'm not upset by your like logic. You are totally correct. Your statistics are absolutely correct. I'm just really depressed by your depression about it. Okay, like you share it with me. God damn it.
Yeah, I watched a great lesbian short film last night. I watched a great short film last night. Starring lesbians, and I actually texted Sarah. I was like, "They don't die, but they're sad at the end." And she's like, "No,
no more sad."
I'm sorry.
I love it. I do think in the eventual movie gang clip show, the lesbian death canary bit that I did will be in there. I'm sure it will.
Good.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, as it should be.
All right. Sorry, Ben. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that's why I don't think the Starks come together, because to me the Stark story is always that the parents died off and then the kids, traumatized by that, come together and then fuck shit up. That's always what I kind of envisioned the Stark storyline. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I always felt like they were going for. And we've murdered as many Starks as we can murder. I think we're at peak Stark murder. Like I think we've managed to kill as many as we can. So I definitely think O'Brien and Yara would be two good choices, not just because of lesbians, but because they're sort of more minor characters, and that like I feel like Yara could die to make way for Theon, you know, and like they seem part of the best. And I think the big question would be like, will Cersei make it? I think she'll make it to the end of the season. But I don't think she's going to make it overall unless she pulls some crazy fucking coup, which she's very good at. We've clearly shown that she's very good at murdering people without them expecting it. So it's possible, but I think she's finally going to...
That's absolutely what I want to happen. That's absolutely what I want to happen in terms of, like, make Cersei capable. It's like, I want a shirt. And then just, I don't want it to be the other way around.
She fucking got all her enemies killed in one swoop, man. She's good.
I totally agree with you.
She's not making it another season, though.
Can I make a Cersei prediction?
Sure.
Yes.
I think it would be really cool now that she's Queen of the Iron Throne and she's got this, she's got all this wildfire, unless she just used all of it to burn the Sept of Baelor, but I don't think she did. I think there's more. I think it would be so cool if the turning point for Jaime deciding to kill Cersei will be Cersei says burn them all.
Yeah.
But with wildfire instead of dragons, and then Jaime's like, fuck, this can't go on.
Well, it was wildfire is going to burn them all with, wasn't it?
Well, I know, but oh, okay, yeah. Then yes, that's right, because all the dragons were gone by that time.
But I think she makes it till the end of the season. But we know that Jaime doesn't turn on her immediately because we see him like leading her armies in the trailers.
Well, yeah, so not immediately, but
there has to be some sort of turning point. Like apparently, fucking Tommen jumping out the window wasn't enough. Like there has to be something else.
Shocking.
That like causes him to just lose it and knock her off.
Yeah, that's maybe my interesting point is like I feel like we're still very far from like him getting there. Like he's close, but not like there. So like I still think Cersei's gonna make it through this season. That would be. I'm more confident about that prediction than I am about like who is actually gonna die. I don't know who's gonna die, but I like. From like a narrative standpoint, want Cersei to live through this season. And it would be cool and it makes sense for her to die off and to go to the White Walker. But that's just like structurally not how I want Game of Thrones to end. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll make the far out prediction about this. I feel like, and this is probably like my like inner like, oh, I want everyone to have like a happy life, even though this is Game of Thrones.
You're so nice, Jenna. You're just like nice people.
But what I think would be
balance
cool
out my
is
cynic.
What pushes Jaime over the edge is like Cersei killing Brienne. That would be like a really powerful moment because it's like he finally loves someone more than his sister, and I would like that. I'm kind of skeptical of my own prediction, but I can hope.
That's a good one.
That's an interesting thought. I like that.
I like it too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I it's hard to predict on Jaime a little bit. He's kind of like he is like a wild card kind of take on a lot of what's happening through most of what's happening too. And he's become more than anyone else kind of like the objective viewer of like the show viewer. He's like, what the fuck is happening? Like that's like that's very much been Jaime for the last couple of seasons. So like I feel like he's like very close to like the fan state of mind, as it were, in terms of that. Because like, like and that's just like John died. Like he's gone to another place. Like all of the Starks have kind of become like more capable in there because they're they're completing more elements of their character arcs, and Dany is in the same way. Like, you know, Jaime hasn't really had a character arc since Brienne, so now it's like you know, we don't know where he's going, and I guess that's the thing is like I can't figure out how or what situation they're going to create to make him go there, and I guess that's maybe why I'm like, I want it to be a season later, because I want Game of Thrones to stay intrigue all the way to the end. I don't want it to have any like final ghost. I don't want there to be an army of undead that sweeps away the Oliphants, if you will.
Well, here's what I'll say. Like, right now, the way the show has been operating the last couple seasons is there's been like a major like villain, right, every season. Like last season it was the High Sparrow. This season it's going to be Cersei. But before they can make the Night King like the villain, I feel like he has to have more motivation, because Game of Thrones is really good at actually like creating like compelling villains. And like right now he's just like, he just wants to destroy everything for no apparent reason. I mean, they've kind of given him some motivation in terms of like his backstory and how he was created with like the Children of the Forest, but I feel like we need more than that.
And that's kind of where I'm like, why I'm like, want Cersei to exist. Like, maybe they build up the Night King and give him a backstory and like a characterization that makes him an interesting villain. But like right now, like one of the best part about Game of Thrones is good villains. Like, we've had the Lannisters forever. They're a calling card. They're like an institution of villainy. Like, okay. Before I'm too quotable, like, ha ha ha. But no, I'm being cute. But like, the point is like, they're very great villains, and that's the thing. Is like, I don't want to see our villains get killed off, because we killed off Ramsay, we killed off all the interesting villains. If Cersei goes, I'm kind of like, yeah, the forces of good, are they gonna? I mean, maybe there's something interesting where the forces of good are aligned against each other and like almost kill each other. That could be interesting and very likened to what's happening in terms of misunderstanding in like a medieval age. And that would be within the plot lines and themes of George R.R. Martin. But at the point I'm more interested in seeing is like, oh, they come together to kill the evil. I was like, I don't really want to see that. I want to see somebody like do something awful to make it happen. Like that would be more interesting and more fitting of Game of Thrones. So all I'm going to say is like, more so than anything, like, I am unsure of what's going to happen. And that's why this is the most excited I've ever been for a Game of Thrones season.
I like that. I think that's about right, and it's a good place to end this thing. You know, it was a bummer to be off for about a year and change, but we're all happy to be back, and it's super interesting.
You were
to see where they take
27
it.
minutes. You were 27 seconds over the hour. That is beautifully timed, sir. I just want to.
We salute you, Sean.
No one ever. I have never timed a podcast that well. Well done, Sean.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Sean, you're gonna have to run them all now.
Fuck you.
Run them all.
Like, fuck you.
Hey, some of us had to wake up at 4. We're a little cranky this early.
It's cool.
All
Got
right.
it.
Well, from everyone at the Tuscan Shed Media Network, this has been Sean Solis, Ben Haworth.
Hi, everyone. See you next week.
Sarah Becker.
Thanks for watching.
Jenna Daggett.
Thank you all.
And Jack Newman.
Face.
All right. Thanks, guys. Woo!